The mission of the Asia Pacific Social Impact Center is quite simple. How can we address intractable social issues? Now, that may seem like a very daunting idea, but our basic premise on how we can accomplish that is one of innovation. And innovation to us is an acknowledgement that the best ideas usually come from the combination of existing knowledge. So what we have always strived to do in every program is to look at ways in which we can combine expertise from different sectors. The not-for-profit sector, the for-profit sector, philanthropic organizations, government. Each of those represents a body of different expertise that when combined generates, we think, innovations around social issues. The perfect example of our foundational belief about innovation is MURA. MURA is a program that was developed through consultation with not-for-profit organizations in the indigenous community. It's been supported by philanthropic organizations and entities such as our EMBA classes and individual alums, as well as other philanthropic organizations. It's been backed by businesses to provide us with speakers, infrastructure to deliver the courses, and then it's been scaled by the government through organizations like IBA. Each of those entities, each of those sectors has brought a different type of expertise that we alone as a business school would not have been able to provide. And that has, I think, generated what has been seen as one of the most innovative approaches to indigenous business in this country. So it's a perfect example of how innovation can really play a big role in solving what seems to be intractable problems. One of the things we understood in this process was that to do this well, it must be based on rigorous thought leadership. And the process of research has always been embedded in what we're trying to accomplish here. It's one thing to teach individuals and to help develop their skills, but foundational to that must be an understanding of what are the challenges being faced by the community. And quite honestly, there's a lack of work in that area. There's a big need. So what we've been doing is doing research on what are the types of factors and behaviors that drive to success in indigenous businesses, what are the constraints that they're placing or they're dealing with, and how can they be overcome. And the hope being that that enhances the pedagogy, the teaching that we provide, but also that those insights are provided to other organizations such that they can influence things such as policy, as well as how organizations partner with each other, both indigenous and non-indigenous.
We've been really interested from a research angle to understand what is this thing called Australian Indigenous Entrepreneurial Leadership. How do Indigenous entrepreneurs lead differently, and what are the tensions that they're navigating? And it does come down to fundamental leadership question, we think, because we're looking at the person who's running the organisation. It's not just about what sort of product they're selling or service they're selling, but it's the strategy behind why they're choosing this, and that's what we're really interested to unpack. So we're looking at this research as a longitudinal study where we're interviewing people and also surveying people multiple times so that we can understand what the impact has. We're quite interested in the impact MURA might have on business growth. That's a hope. We would love it to have an impact on business growth, but we're more than that, we're interested in how businesses develop, whether they grow, whether they go into decline, whether certain strategies are more profitable, or what are some other ways of thinking about the impact and success that they're having, like employing more Indigenous Australians in these sort of enterprises. That's a fantastic outcome that we can talk about.
I think it's very exciting to see the students go on these journeys. They come in, they have very little understanding, I think, as to what MURA is going to be about. And we start them off, and I think there's a little bit of awe in the sense of, wow, there's a lot of structure here. They're throwing out terms and ideas that we hadn't perhaps thought about. But then after they get over that first shock, I think the excellence begins to shine out. They go, wait, I'm actually a business person. I actually have thought about some of these things. I haven't necessarily thought about them in that way. But okay, now I get the idea. Let's move forward. And then on the back end, they're buzzing. The ideas are just coming out of their pores. And it's really fun a year later, a year and a half later, 2 years later, to speak with them to see how they've created, which is in the essence of entrepreneurship. They've taken these ideas that we developed and honed in the classroom, and they've gone out and they've created new products, they've launched new businesses, they've expanded to new locations, and to sort of see that a potential be untapped is really amazing. And in many cases, I don't think they would not themselves have thought that would have been the outcome when they first started that first day. So the journey really looks like a this notion of awe, this notion of sort of resolve, and then this notion of aspiration and inspiration.
The impact it's had on participants, I mean, you know, it's just such a pleasure to work with and alongside so many different Indigenous entrepreneurs. I mean, I see some of these entrepreneurs changing their business strategy straight away. I see them from the first time that they arrive, they're starting to do business with each other. I see personal level impacts. I see people really gaining a lot more confidence and self-authorisation in their voice and in their leadership. I see people growing their businesses globally. I see people getting out of business altogether. There are so many different kind of, not impacts from the program, I guess, but just pathways that people go on, or we've been a part of their journey. What I do see in terms of how the program has impacted people is that there is a common language and a common passion, which is about, you know, really standing up and saying we want to have independent economic futures for Indigenous Australia, and we're going to show you by doing this, but more than that, we're going to give back to the community in various ways. And so that's what I'm excited by, is hearing those sort of stories.
I think the potential for this program going forward is quite exciting. Right now, what we're doing is we're working with Indigenous entrepreneurs. One thing we need to think about is that we need to really think bigger about the talent pipeline within this sector. So while we're having individuals who are sort of at the more pointy end, I would love to see this program expand to begin to excite others to come into entrepreneurship, to begin to look at ways in which other organizations within the Indigenous community can have more of a commercial orientation, such as Native Title organizations and not-for-profit organizations. And I also think we need to dig back a little deeper. I think we need to begin exciting Indigenous youth to look at business as not just an option, but an exciting option for how they can use their skill and talent.